You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz. For great radio, get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
Lanterns authorization code accepted. Logging in. Your access to the HoloNet has been approved. Please stand by.
Good afternoon, everybody. You're listening to the HoloNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. Got a great show lined up for you today. We're going to talk about the new carrier that was just launched by the Chinese Navy. We're going to discuss the Freedom Caucus and the fact that they're now backing up President Trump's revised healthcare bill. We're going to address a statement from Bill Nye, the so-called science guy, who has apparently had quite enough of the extra kids in the world. And finally, we're going to set the record straight on the AZ Unity Rally. Contrary to what Arizona local news has said, it was not just another Trump rally. All that and more on the HoloNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. Stick around.
You're listening to the HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network. The millennial conservative resistance begins here.
All right, you're listening to the HoloNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. I'm Matt Holloway coming to you from Phoenix, Arizona. Now, just in on the lanterns.buzz website here, China launches a second aircraft carrier hours away from North Korea. That's right, amidst the tensions surrounding North Korea, China is asserting its status as a world power in a way which cannot be ignored. Late yesterday, reports began to stream in that China has launched its second, as yet unnamed aircraft carrier, referred to as Type 001A, which will join its progenitor, the Liaoning, the refit former Soviet carrier Varyag, which was built in 1988. Now, I put up this story on lanterns.buzz. It's also available on the holonet.blogspot.com for you to check out. This is a real game changer for a couple of reasons. Number one, China very recently, back in 2012, fielded its first aircraft carrier. Now, this aircraft carrier was purchased by China from Ukraine, who inherited it from the Soviet Union after its fall. Now, the Varyag was not complete. It was not in fighting condition at all. So the world collectively yawned in 1998, thinking maybe China was going to turn it into a hotel, as they've done before. I'm not kidding. I'll provide you a link. But, no. The Chinese took the carrier Varyag and reverse engineered it. For 20 years, they studied it. They purchased the blueprints from the Russian Federation at some ungodly expense. And they began to refit it and actually make it service capable. And in 2012, rechristened the Liaoning, the former Soviet carrier Varyag, set sail under the red banner of the People's Republic of China. And from there, China has developed their entire marine aviation program, their entire naval aviation program. Now, they've even designed a fighter around this carrier, which is the J-25 fighter. So China is getting back into the blue water navy game. And, you know, people may say, oh, well, it's been a while since China had a navy. No, you don't get it. It hasn't been a while. We're talking the 15th century. the last time China had a blue water navy to be reckoned with. So this has been a long time coming. I mean, a lot of the time when we think about China, we think, yeah, they got the biggest army in the world, but there's a great big bad Pacific Ocean in the middle, and they don't have any way to get from there to here. That may not be the case in the next couple of decades. Now, in the story, I go into some additional detail, but a couple of important things for you to know. Basically, this Type 001A is, for all intents and purposes, a clone of the Soviet carrier Varyag. Same ski, jump, lift off on the bow, slightly higher hangar capacity, similar length, beam, all that. Very, very similar ship, but with all the modern accoutrement built in already, not refit into a design from the late 1980s. So this is a conventionally powered aircraft carrier right now. They already have another under construction and a third planned. The third planned is likely to be nuclear. All right. Now, if you check out that story, there were a couple of great write-ups that I cited on here. Washington Post AP had a good write-up on it. The angle that a lot of the bigger outlets missed, that I emphasized on my article on Lanterns and that we've been kind of running with, is that this could be not just a message to the United States, not just a message to the denizens of the South China Sea, your Vietnam, your Philippines, your Fiji, your Polynesia, which, by the way, I realize are Polynesia is an antiquated term. I should say Indonesia. But it's not just a message to those countries where China's had some friction lately because of the South China Sea and the Spratly Islands and all that. I think this is a big message straight to Pyongyang and Kim Jong-un, because something that a lot of outlets missed is the shipyards at Dalian are only 223 miles away from North Korea. It's right across the Yellow Sea. Literally, you pull this on a map, on the left-hand side of your screen is a peninsula with Dalian, and on the right side of your screen is the Korean peninsula with Pyongyang, 50 miles in from the coast? So yeah, 223 miles away, China puts out their brand new aircraft carrier with a bunch of pomp and circumstance. Now, for the sake of clarification, the Type 001A is not yet combat worthy at all. This was a ceremonial launch, so it was a big PR event, a bit of a PR coup, I think, where they basically shove this 70,000-ton behemoth into the water and they break the bottle over the bow. We do the same thing when we build a large ship or a carrier. But she still has a ton of work to get done, interior spec work, working out the electrical bugs, load out, getting her air group put on. So she's probably actually not going to hit the field for about another 3 years, 2020. But again, very symbolic move here. And North Korea is big on symbolic moves. Parading troops down the street holding not-so-real weapons, for the sake of the international press. Conducting missile tests that don't really seem to go anywhere, holding extensive military drills and artillery drills only miles away from the capital of Seoul of South Korea. North Korea is big on symbolism. What I think we're seeing here is President Xi of China sitting up from Beijing and saying, "Can you hear me, Kim? Can you hear me?" Now, I mentioned I consulted a lot of great sources on here. We have Washington Post AP. There's also an incredible infographic here from Forbes Statista, which compares the new carrier, the Type 001A, to the USS Gerald R. Ford, which we currently have under construction here in the United States. And there's not really a lot of comparison here. The USS Gerald R. Ford and the latest generation of American aircraft carriers are superior to this vessel in every way. But it is about force projection. It's about power projection and the ability to field a serious blue water navy. That's what the symbolism is here. And also the speed with which this vessel was produced, okay? This vessel was brought into development as the first of its class in 2013, and it launched in 2017. 4 years from blueprints and schematics to a ship on the water is a good turn time. It's a really good turn time. And that's from the Associated Press's Christopher Bodine, said the development began in 2013 and construction in late 2015. So it only took them about a year and a half to build this thing, and it'll be formally commissioned sometime before 2020 after sea trials and the arrival of its air complement. Now, you go a little deeper here. You go to the Nikkei and to Zero Hedge, and they detail kind of the alarming rate of this progress. And they say, the future aircraft carriers are likely to be built faster now that China has amassed the design experience and technology to bring the first vessel to launch. Work on a second Chinese-made carrier has already begun. The vessel will probably employ a steam catapult to launch its aircraft, according to retired Major General Zhu Guangyu told the Chinese media. And the third vessel is expected to use nuclear propulsion, eliminating the need to resupply fuel, and work has already begun on escort vessels and submarines for China to actually form a complete carrier strike group. Because the power of the United States on the water is not simply in the carrier itself. The carrier is the centerpiece of a carrier strike group. Now, typically, mind you, there are aberrations to this. A carrier strike group will include usually one CG, one guided missile cruiser of the Ticonderoga variant right now. We're phasing out the Ticonderoga steadily, but I don't know that the Navy actually has a replacement designed for her yet. And usually 2 or 3 Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, which are equipped with the Aegis anti-ballistic missile system, and typically these carrier groups will have 1 to 2 SSN attack submarines with them, or hunter-killer submarines, usually of the Los Angeles or Seawolf class. So that's kind of the layout of our carrier strike groups. If China can begin to field carrier strike groups, then that is force projection. That's what they used to call gunboat diplomacy, and it's what we do every day. When Iran starts to get uppity, what do? We park a carrier strike group in the Gulf and we tell them, mind your P's and Q's. We're doing the same thing right now with North Korea, with the Carl Vinson battle group moving up, potentially the Ronald Reagan coming up from Yokosuka and bringing their carrier strike group as well. They were even talking about bringing a third carrier over just from outside Bremerton, Washington. I'll refer back to my notes from my previous show, but the name of that one escapes me right now. But it's force projection on an international scale. That is what China is looking to do. So I capped off my story by saying this. The balance of global power is changing every day, and Beijing continues to apply pressure to Kim Jong-un economically, and now, symbolically through their military. The situation in Asia could change very quickly. The United States has returned after 20 years of soft posture, and China's fleets, long neglected since the 1400s, seem to be returning to reclaim the eastern seas. So this could be a significant shift in the balance of power in the Pacific Ocean. So I'll leave you to think on that one a little bit. Now I know if you listen to the Battlefield Live, Chris Pillier and Susie, I am totally spacing on Susan's name right now. She's probably not going to be happy with me about it. Susan Swift, the hostette of the Battlefield. Susan Swift and Chris Pillier probably went over this yesterday. Chris Pillier said he was going to touch on it, but I just wanted to go a little bit more in depth, being as it is my story. So if you have any questions or you want to dig a little deeper, get on lanterns.buzz, check out that story. Got all the citations in line. You can check out the supporting sources and the supporting stories on there, and the crazy infographic from Forbes Statista, okay? So with that, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to start talking about something you're not going to believe. I'm not sure I do. I'm a little sick to my stomach about it. But according to Carlos Garcia of The Blaze and numerous sources, including the New York Times, it appears the Freedom Caucus has backed down and is now lining up to support President Trump's revised health care bill. We'll get to that when we return here from this break. You're listening to the HoloNet Podcast on the Lanterns Media Network.
I've thought a bit of the shining city upon a hill. The phrase comes from John Winthrop, who wrote it to describe the America he imagined. What he imagined was important because he was an early pilgrim, an early freedom man. He journeyed here on what today we call a little wooden boat, and like the other pilgrims, he was looking for a home that would be free. I've spoken of a shining city all my political life, but I don't know if I ever quite communicated what I saw when I said it. But in my mind, it was a tall, proud city built on rocks stronger than oceans, windswept, God-blessed, and teeming with people of all kinds living in harmony and peace. A city with free ports that hummed with commerce and creativity. And if there had to be city walls, the walls had doors, and the doors were open to anyone with the will and the heart to get it. That's how I saw it, and see it still.
I want the people of America to be able to work less for the government and more for themselves. I want them to have the rewards of their own industry. This is the chief meaning of freedom. Until we can reestablish a condition under which the earnings of the people can be kept by the people, we are bound to suffer a very severe and distinct curtailment of our liberty.
We shall defend our island, whatever the cost may be. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender. And if, which I do not for a moment believe, this island or a large part of it were subjugated and starving, then our empire beyond the seas, armed and guarded by the British fleet, would carry on the struggle until, in God's good time, the new world, with all its power and might, steps forth to the rescue and the liberation of the old.
All levels of income are better off than they were in 1979. But what the honourable member is saying is that he would rather the poor were poorer, provided the rich were less rich. That way you will never create the wealth for better social services as we have. And what a policy! Yes, he would rather have the poor poorer, provided the rich were less rich. That is a liberal policy. Yes, it came out, he didn't intend it to, but he did.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice. And let me remind you also that moderation in the pursuit of justice is no virtue.
The new conservative resistance begins right here, right now, with you. Here we hold the line against the night. You're listening to the HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network.
You're listening to the HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network. The millennial conservative resistance begins here.
And welcome back. You're listening to the HoloNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. I'm Matt Holloway coming to you from Phoenix, Arizona. So, we're going to get to that story real quick here about the Freedom Caucus. It seems they've had a small change of heart. Got a little piece of audio here I'm going to play for you, but first I want to get down to the nitty-gritty here. Story on theblaze.com from Carlos Garcia. It says, the Freedom Caucus of Conservative Republicans in the House of Representatives has announced they will approve the latest revision of President Trump's health care bill. Aren't you excited? Aren't you thrilled that we're going to have Trump care? Oh, wait, hang on. Trump care? That's right, Trump care. Whoa. Hold on. Didn't President Trump run on the concept of ridding us of Obamacare completely? Wasn't that the idea? I seem to remember him saying something to that effect. Yeah, I seem to recall a little something like that. Let's see here. Let's see if that's on here.
Begins with immediately repealing and replacing the disaster known as Obamacare.
Yeah, I was pretty sure I heard that. So, yeah, repeal and replace Obamacare. Now we have the American Health Care Act. Is that right? Is that what's going to happen here? Good Lord. So, the House Freedom Caucus announced by their Twitter account, quote, "We will work with our Senate colleagues to improve the AHCA. Our work will continue until we fully repeal Obamacare." The statement went on to say, due to improvements to the AHCA and the addition of Rep. Tom MacArthur's proposed amendment, the House Freedom Caucus has taken an official position in support of the current proposal. The MacArthur amendment will grant states the ability to repeal cost-driving aspects of Obamacare left in place under the original AHCA. While the revised version still does not fully repeal Obamacare, we are prepared to support it to keep our promise to the American people to lower health care costs. Our work will continue until we fully repeal Obamacare, they concluded. So what this is looking like to me is that the Freedom Caucus is sitting back and saying, listen, we just can't get rid of the whole thing all at once, so we're just going to gradually scale it back. Just a little. We're going to get rid of the cost-driving aspects first, and then we're going to basically continue to kick the can down the road for another 8 years. Yeah, I got to say I'm not happy. I was hoping for just a little bit more backbone out of the Freedom Caucus. And, living in Arizona, I actually have quite a few members of the Arizona congressional delegation here who are members of this. And, I want to know what Paul Gosar has to say about this. And I'm going to reach out to him and I'm going to ask. I want to know what Trent Franks, my congressman, has to say about this. So you know what you should do? Check on the Freedom Caucus's site there. Get the full list of Freedom Caucus members. See if there are any in your state. Get on the phone with them. Get on Twitter. Get on Facebook. What's the deal? The Freedom Caucus was supposed to be the last great hope for demanding the repeal of Obamacare. And now it looks like we're not going to get it. Way to go, Congress. You folded like Superman on Laundry Day. I hope you're proud of yourselves. Now the question is, can the Trump presidency easily survive this, the cornerstone of his campaign? There were two cornerstones to the campaign for President Trump. Build the wall and make it tall, and repeal Obamacare. Every last word. Now, if we come out of the first year, and neither of those things have been done, two things are going to happen. Two things. You ready for them? Number one, the GOP is toast in the midterms. I mean barbecued, gone. Just ripped out by the roots. And it might not even be the Dems that do it. We're talking about another Tea Party revolution. Because the American people have had it with this inaction on Obamacare. And hey, I'm a big fan of going through Congress with the weed trimmer and taking out everything that's been there a little too long. So yeah, it might be time to vote out incumbents, kids. That's something that I've called for a good long while here. And if our representatives, Trent Franks, Paul Gosar, I'm talking to you, if our representatives in the House can't reach down and find the fortitude to stand for what they know is right and what they promise their constituents, then I think that time has come to bust out the big old VOI sign. Vote out incumbents. Time for a new freshman class. Out with the old and in with the new. So, before we go on break here, I just wanted to go into... Ooh. Uh-oh. What'd I touch? Oh, jeez. Okay. Hang on, let me shut off that noise for you. Okay, that's a new little system I've implemented here at the HoloNet podcast. That indicates to me that there's a breaking critical story. So that noise, if you hear it, that siren, if you hear it, that means change of plan time. So we're going to go really quick now to... Oh my gosh, we're going to go to airforce.mil, af.mil. According to a press release from Air Force Global Strike Command Public Affairs, F.E. Warren tests Minuteman III missile with launch from Vandenberg Air Force Base. According to this, Vandenberg Air Force Base in California, a combined team of Air Force Global Strike Command airmen launched an unarmed Minuteman III intercontinental ballistic missile equipped with a single test re-entry vehicle from Vandenberg Air Force Base. The ICBM's re-entry vehicle, which contained a telemetry package used for operational testing, traveled 4,200 miles to Kwajalein Atoll in the Marshall Islands. Test launches verified the accuracy and reliability of the Minuteman III ICBM weapon system, providing valuable data to ensure a continued secure and effective nuclear deterrent. Colonel Craig Ramsey of the 576th Flight Test Squadron said, "I can't say enough the great things about the partners I share this mission set with. The men and women from the task force, the airmen from my squadron, and our host unit here at Vandenberg made this look easy." Now, I want you to... he goes on to say, "But it was anything but that. It's a testament to the dedication and professionalism of those proud organizations. I'm proud to play a small part in it." Now, I don't want to shorten a quote from one of our esteemed servicemen and women, but according to Colonel Craig Ramsey, the 576th Flight Test Squadron commander at Vandenberg Air Force Base, "We launched today a Minuteman III intercontinental ballistic missile test. It flew 4,200 miles from California to the Marshall Islands." Now, I want you to take that in the context of the previous week's hilariously failed missile test in North Korea, which we covered on this program. The United States Air Force just looked Pyongyang straight in the eye and said, "Oh yeah? Ours works." So yeah, ours works. This is not some experimental test, some new design. This is the Minuteman III intercontinental ballistic missile, capable of multiple independent re-entry vehicles, each armed with a multi-megaton nuclear warhead. This is the United States Air Force telling North Korea, this is a test, and this is what could happen. Definitely a ratcheting up of the rhetoric, a ratcheting up of the tensions this week in late April of 2017. North Korea tests an intermediate-range ballistic missile. The United States tests an intercontinental ballistic missile to remind them who it was that brought the atomic bomb to the world. All right. So, with that, going to take a quick break here. We're going to come back. Couple more things to get to today. We're going to talk about Bill Nye, the so-called science guy, and his latest insult to conservative thinking and to American values that is being presented on Netflix. Get ready for it. It's not pretty. It's going to make your blood boil. I know it did mine. So stick around. You're listening to the HoloNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network.
You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz for great radio. Get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
Hey everybody, Matt Holloway here. I wanted to take a moment to talk to you about an amazing group of patriot entrepreneurs. Hot Pants LLC of Arizona is a welding, fabrication, and metallurgy company specializing in display weaponry and shields. A veteran-owned and operated company, they create interesting items inspired by their customers' ideas, as well as beautiful custom pieces of their own design. They're certified welders, credentialed by the Arizona Automotive Institute and Tidewater Community College, with a background experience from the U.S. military and the shipping industry. Hot Pants specializes in creating weaponry for cosplay, anime, video games, and the zombie apocalypse. No matter what your imagination can dream up, they can create a slew of interesting, creative weapons and shields ideal for any costume or outfit. If you're engrossed in the world of video games or role-playing, let them arm your character with unique, high-quality weapons. You won't be disappointed by their artistry and attention to detail. Give them a call today at 602-900-6856. That's 602-900-6856. Order online at www.hotpantsmetal.com. That's HOTTPANTS metal.com. Also there on Facebook at facebook.com/hotpantsllc.
You're listening to the HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network. The millennial conservative resistance begins here.
And we're back. You're listening to the HoloNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. I'm Matt Holloway. Now, right before the break, I told you there's a new series out there. It's called Bill Nye Saves the World. It's on Netflix. And I have seen precisely one half of one episode, and I've had enough. Now, if you want to read about this and save yourself the agita, it's what my grandmother used to describe. It's when you get angry and you get heartburn because you're angry. It's agita. Want to save yourself the agita of actually watching this tragedy, hop onto the Federalist. I'll provide a link here in the show notes. And check this out. By the way, show notes can be found on holonet.lanterns.buzz. Lanterns.buzz. You can find all of my shows. You can find all of my writings on there and all the show notes. So check it out if you haven't already. And goodness, if you want to find me on social media, tweet at Matt D. Holloway. Tweet at the HoloNet. Hop on Facebook. It's facebook.com/HoloNet. All these ways for you to connect. So by all means, love your comments. Love what you share. Please do feel free to reach out on social media and all that. But getting back to Mr. Nye. I say Mr. Nye, notice that, because there's not a doctor behind that. It's not Dr. Bill Nye, unlike Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson, who I actually respect a great deal, who I think has some great opinions. Not like Dr. Carl Sagan, who is an avowed atheist and a big fan of marijuana, who, despite my obvious disagreements, I can respect, God rest him, even though he probably wouldn't care much for that statement. But Mr. Nye, the science guy. I grew up watching this guy's show on PBS, which I want you to remember that, okay? His show aired on PBS. May very well still in syndication. But he has come out as this progressive climate change activist and just advocate for all things progressive and liberal, espousing different viewpoints surrounding climate change. He thinks he's the next Al Gore. He actually had on his show a little musical skit about gender as a construct, despite the fact that it's now coming out that during his Bill Nye the Science Guy show, he actually explained that gender is a biological state related to chromosomal differentiation. That came back to bite him. But anyway, he's become this progressive symbol, it seems, since the March for Science last week. So on his show, he asked bluntly, he had a round table of people there, and he said, should we have policies that penalize people for having extra kids in the developed world. Yup, that actually happened. Now, one of the guests that he had was Dr. Rachel Snow, Chief of Population Development of the United Nations Population Fund, and to her credit, she jumped up and took issue with the idea that, quote, we do anything to incentivize fewer children or more children. Yeah, because China did something a little bit like that. It was called the One China Policy. If you Google that, you'll see how that epically backfired and created a bottleneck and a epidemic of single men in China because there are no bloody women for them to marry. Penalize people for having extra kids in the developed world. What, you charge me an extra tax because I have 3 beautiful little boys? Because instead of having one son and one daughter and one on the way, your classic 2.5 children of the American family, I've got 3 little boys, and we're probably going to try for a girl, so I should get penalized on my taxes? I don't think so. That's not the United States that I was born into and that I grew up in. That's not a constitutional nation that respects individual freedom, Mr. Nye. These are the hallmarks of a totalitarian dictatorship. Telling parents, under the force of the gun, because make no mistake, taxation is the force of the gun. Either you pay taxes or they pull out the gun and they put you in prison. Okay? So taxes are theft. I'm going to say that now. I'm going to say it over and over again. Taxation is theft. I realize it's part of the social contract, and I'm going to get all these arguments that how else do you pay for things? You don't need an income tax, believe me. But I digress. Suggesting that there should be policies that penalize people, government policies that penalize people for having quote-unquote extra kids, is absurd and offensive on multiple levels. My grandparents had 5 children. 4 daughters, 1 son. That's on my mom's side. On my dad's side, it's a little more complicated because my grandfather married, I think, 3 times. He wasn't very good at... He was good at having children. He just wasn't good at being with them for very long. God rest his soul. I might get a phone call from my dad on that one, but he knows I'm right. Big families were all the rage 50 years ago, 60 years ago. Now, not so much. Now, that's mainly a hallmark you find in your Intermountain West. Some bits of the South, you'll still find bigger families, 4 or 5 kids, things like that. In the Amish country, they actually actively endeavor to have as many children as humanly possible. I know that there are some groups of the Mormon faith that actually do that. So this is a right to determine what is best for your own family. It's the right of my wife and I to determine if it is in our best interest and our children's best interest for us to have another child. I think it is. I think it's in our best interest to add another loving heart, another gifted mind, another voice. So you know what? Yeah. I think my wife and I are going to stick with our original plan, Bill. We're probably going to try for a little girl here in a couple of years. Right now we got our hands a little bit full with my oldest, Jack, and the twins, Daniel and Nicholas. They just turned 1. Love them to pieces. We had some complications with them. They almost didn't make it. But thank God every day that they did. And then I have Bill Nye, the not-so-science guy, have the unmitigated gall to suggest that my wife and I should be punished for having 3 little boys. Well, not taking too kindly to that, I hopped on Twitter. I didn't use some of the 4-letter invectives that I wanted to. No, I'm a little more professional than that. Not much more, but a little more. So here's the tweet that I fired off to old Bill Nye, someone who I used to look up to as a kid, somebody who I respected. And I said this: "Hey, at Bill Nye, on behalf of my hashtag extra kids," and by the way, if you've got an answer to this stupidity, I strongly suggest you tweet it, hashtag HoloNet, hashtag extra kids. So, hey, at Bill Nye, on behalf of my hashtag extra kids, see below. You disgust me. Hashtag Bill Nye saves the world indeed. To think I used to enjoy your show. ... Hashtag sad. And the meme I put below is a wonderful picture of Sean Connery as James Bond with the cigarette lazily hanging out of his mouth. And in the tabs it says, "I'm not saying I hate you, but I would unplug your life support to charge my cell phone." Now, I thought long and hard about this one, because this shows the level of indifference and lamaze that he just showed us. That's the indifference to human life that the left exhibits, and I just want to bring it front and center. When you're telling parents that they should be punished for having children, when Planned Parenthood tells us they're not taking a life, but oh wait, we look back to the 1950s, oh, you were admitting that it was taking a life, that you were ending the life of a child in the 1950s. I think it's because in the 1950s, we didn't have to lie to ourselves. But yeah, Bill Nye, there's my answer for you, buddy. So when we come back, we're going to have a little segment here on the Arizona Unity rally that they held here in the Phoenix area, right in front of the capital of Arizona, just this past Saturday, the 22nd. I was honored and pleased to speak there. I was given that opportunity by Steve Robinson and also by Lisa Antone and Mike Thorne, a couple of the other organizers there from the United Liberty Coalition here in Arizona. So I'm going to give you a little bit of information about that. It seems that the local press may have gotten it a touch wrong. We're just going to explore that real quick. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the AZ Unity Rally, not just another Trump rally. You're listening to the HoloNet Podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. I'm Matt Holloway. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network. The millennial conservative resistance begins here.
And we're back. Thanks for listening to the HoloNet Podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. We've got a couple of things I wanted to get to. I want to play you some audio now from CBS 5 here in Phoenix, Arizona, and also NBC 12, because we held a rally in downtown Phoenix, and it was a unity rally. It was the AZ Unity Rally by the United Liberty Coalition, and the concept was to bring people together regardless of political affiliation or aspiration, just as patriots and as Americans. So first, I want to play you a little bit of audio from the news reports, and then I want to play you the quick little talk that I gave, just to kind of give you the difference there of what the news, the mainstream media is saying it was about versus what it actually was. So we're going to go to audio first from CBS 5 News here in Phoenix. We're going to go to that right now.
Bring this to Independence Day in April. Nearly 200 people gathered outside the state capitol this afternoon for the Arizona Unity Rally. The rally celebrated the country's government leaders, first responders, and soldiers.
We just want to let everyone know that it's time to set our differences aside and come together. We need to unite. We need to get back to being a fellow Americans.
We can unify left and right, Republicans and Democrats, to put the country on the right track.
Organizers there hope to spread a message of unity at a time when the country is so politically divided.
Now, I have to give credit where credit is due. CBS 5 here kind of got it right. That was the voices you heard there were their reporter, obviously, and Steve Robinson, who is vice president of the Sons of Liberty Riders here in Arizona, and also you heard Dr. Kelly Ward, candidate for Senate. Now, that was a fairly good representation, and the tag underneath says, "Community members gather for Unity Rally." Isn't that great? Now, I'm going to play for you NBC 12's take on it, okay? Not quite as solid here.
at the end of the show. Meanwhile, at the state capitol, veterans along with patriotic residents and visitors alike all attending the Unity Revolution rally today. The United Liberty Coalition organized the event for the public to come together and display their patriotism and to celebrate Donald Trump's presidency.
If people have powerful feelings about our country and want us to see it to be successful, that they can't just sit at home. We're in a tough time in our country, and we have to get the message out.
Speakers like Dr. Kelly Ward and Frank Schmuck were guest speakers at this event. Ward is a potential candidate for U.S. Senate against Senator Jeff Flake.
So, for the record on there, CBS got it right, NBC not so much. And NBC actually got a shot of me on there. And the subtext, I almost died laughing, says, Trump supporters rally in Phoenix. President Trump supporters rally in Phoenix. And they play it off like it's just another Trump rally, right? So, I'm going to go to now my audio, my remarks from this rally. If you didn't get a chance to listen to them on Facebook, I figure you can listen to them here. And this is what this rally was all about from my perspective. It was about unifying Americans, regardless of political affiliation. So we'll go to that now.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Matt Holloway, and I'm the host of the HoloNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. First, I would like to thank all of you for having the courage and fortitude to come out today, not only in the heat of the Arizona sun, but under threat of violence from those who would oppose unity in this nation and the free expression of free speech and political thought. I would also like to thank the organizers of the Red, White, and Blue Unity Rally for inviting me to speak today. Since July of last year, I've covered a few rallies, both remotely and in person, starting with President Donald Trump's rally just at the Arizona Fairgrounds back in July. From then, I see a lot of familiar faces today. I see veterans who served our country nobly. I see activists who fight today still for free thought and free speech. I see notes that I'm abandoning. Every time I've ever gotten up to speak in front of people, I've spent 2 to 3 days writing and 3 to 4 seconds discarding. Because when I come here today on the lawn of the Arizona Senate, I see before me patriots all. I see people coming together not for divisiveness of party or for dichotomy of thought, but for unity in principle. In the principles that founded our nation. That all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Today, ladies and gentlemen, those principles are under the sternest attack that we have seen in many generations. It has become a crime in this nation nearly to express a difference in opinion from what is held by your party to be doctrine, from what is purported by the media to be truth. So today here in the 92 or so degrees of Arizona, we stand for the unity of all Americans, for the rights of those who disagree with us to protest peacefully, and for our own right to be heard as well. I don't know how many of you, like I, watched the violence in Berkeley on Facebook Live or what the mainstream media chose to show you. But I see today the safety of our convictions. I see great men and women who are ready to stand in defense of liberty. And I want to thank the first responders, law enforcement, and also the security groups who are with us today. Now, what also gives me heart is looking out into the crowd and seeing that for once in a great while, I am not the youngest person in the room. I see a great many millennials among us today. Now, millennial has become a bit of a bad word, hasn't it? It's become synonymous with Black Lives Matter. It's become synonymous with the movements out of UC Berkeley and out of the University of Chicago. But I tell you, conservatism among millennials is not dead today. We stand today with an opportunity. We have President Trump in the White House. We have conservative congressmen in both houses. We have conservatives in more state legislatures than in the last 70 years. So we have an opportunity to reach out to our fellow Americans regardless of their creed and regardless of their political inclinations, and unite as Americans. Not as Republicans or as Democrats, as liberals or conservatives, but to unite around the principles that have guided this nation so well. 2 or 3 blocks from here, there is another rally going on. It is the March for Science. It has quickly become the March for Progressivism. So what I would invite everyone here today to do is to reach out and to engage. Hold your ground for your philosophies, for your principles, but engage nonetheless, because the moment the conversation stops, so do our freedoms. I started writing for an online publication about 2 years ago, and like I said, I covered the Trump rally down at the fairgrounds. I covered the protests in front of the FBI building calling for the prosecution of then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. I've covered a lot of stories, but the story that remains untold is the story of America in the 21st century, when we choose to turn back the tide against progressive socialism, when we choose to embrace the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and the Bill of Rights, when we remember what it is to be Americans. And that principle will not die as long as there is one man, one woman, one child who looks defiantly into the night and says, "I am free." Thank you all, ladies and gentlemen. God bless you and keep you. God bless the great state of Arizona and the United States of America.
Now, I can't think of too much better way to cap off a show than the way I did making that speech in front of the Capitol by saying, "God bless you and keep you, and God bless the United States of America." Bit of a difference there between what the mainstream media in the form of NBC 12 had to say and CBS 5's surprisingly accurate portrayal there, and what really went down. It wasn't about one man. It was about uniting as Americans. And that's the thought I'll leave you with today. Coming to you from west of Phoenix, Arizona, I'm Matt Holloway, and this is the HoloNet Podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. Good night, and God bless.